trying to make a video about how, success is not what you think it is, and it's not as skill based as you think it is. I was watching Gamescom, which has just been on recently, and I was realizing like most of these games aren't interesting to me in any way, even as like a pretty hardcore game. I'm just not kind of doing it for us. I remember what I tuned into, I think one last night, I think it was the Future Games show conference, and like one of the first comment I seen in the chat was like, I wouldn't even gift these games, and I was like, oh shit. Like, but it just got me thinking about how like the target audience for like video games, like the kind of most popular kind of metric is always like the 20 to 35 bracket, or the 21 to 35 bracket, something like that. And obviously I'm outside of that now, so I'm a 38-year-old man, closing in obviously ever quickly on 40. And I was just thinking about like how the older you get, the more you realize that you were never made to succeed and built to succeed from the start by the system. Like the system's always kind of got you held down. Because I was just thinking, this was just a total shower thought that got us thinking, was just like, just doing everything that would actually be required of you to be what was considered a successful day is actually impossible pretty much with a full-time job. So like if you have a full-time job, it's typically 7 to 9 hours a day, and then you could have travel time that could be anywhere up to an hour and a half each way, which I used to have in one of my most recent jobs. Was like sometimes it was an hour and a half to 2 hours of travel each way on top of the full workday. So you're out the house most of the fucking day. But it's just like everything else you're meant to do to have a successful day. It's like you have to go in the shower, and that sounds pretty fucking straightforward, you know what I mean? But it's like to actually be like showering perfectly to the best way that you know how. You should be washing every little bit of your body, not missing anything, putting shampoo and conditioner on. When you come out the bath, you should be drying yourself and then blow drying your hair and blow drying your beard and all this shit. And like as you get older, your skin just gets worse and starts to dry out. So maybe you should be putting some fucking lotion on your face of some kind of lotion. It puts the lotion on its skin, or it gets the hose again. Like some face cream or some shit. And it's just like every single task is like the perfect version of it is just more time spent. And I feel like everyone is neglecting something in their life. They just won't admit that they either neglect it, or they have a system in place so they don't have to do it. So then on top of all that, that's just, I've got home and I've had a shower. Now I've got to make tea. So what does make tea involve? Well, it might mean doing dishes from yesterday, or it might mean doing the dishes. It'll definitely mean doing the dishes after cooking the meal. So you're preparing the meal. You should be preparing a healthy, balanced meal. So that takes some mental acuity where you're having to think about what you're going to have, what you're going to make, how you're going to make it. Humans tend to not like, I do, but normal people tend not to like the same meal every single day of their life. You know what I mean? Like autistic / ADHD people might be more inclined towards that, but normal people want, so now you have to spend time thinking about what's for tea. Then you make that tea, then that has to be tidied up, and then it's like, what else needs to be done in a house every single day? Like if you have a house, or like whether you just live in a house, rent a house, whatever, like the floor needs hoovered, the floor might need scooped, the benches need wiped, the fucking microwave needs cleaned, the fucking oven needs cleaned, everything needs fucking cleaned constantly. So it's impossible to do that task. What happens is you put some tasks on the back burner, you just don't give them the time that they actually need. Sometimes you go, fuck me, I've got 2 hours left before I need to go to bed, and like, I don't know, like the fucking oven needs done, I'll do it on the weekend. I can't be arsed. You know what I mean? I can't be arsed. I'm fucking exhausted, and I've got a whole day of this tomorrow. And that's where money's such an advantage, and which is why I'm like less and less impressed by successful people as I get older. Because if you come from money, it's not just having the safety of not having to worry about your bills and not having to work a full-time job. That in itself saves you. Obviously, not having to work a full-time job obviously saves you on average 40 hours a week. That in itself obviously is massive. And then obviously it's always more than 40 hours a week, because if you work 40 hours a week, that doesn't include your travel time. So then you've got your travel time on top of that. So that is a massive saving in and of itself. But it's also like all the other things, you know what I mean? Like you will have some of these advantages even if you're like considerably poor compared to a millionaire, which is most people. Like you might live at home with your parents, so your parents might pick up a big portion of the fucking chores. But like I say, if someone's mega rich and everything's being fucking picked up for them, what an advantage that is. Like, it's not to say that they couldn't have made it without those advantages. People do, but the problem is the people who do make it in spite of these advantages, we put them up on some pedestal, and then we like use that as a comparison for our own failure. Like, well, that person was able to do it, so you just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But then you're like neglecting like the entire breadth of human experience and intelligence. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's completely different people at every single stage of their life, whether that's in terms of like physical abilities or mental abilities. So like to put the entire blame on that because they don't perform under this very strict system that we've created, it's like literally madness. It's one of those things. As I get older, I'm like, I think it was the example I was used was Will Smith's daughter, like Willow, years ago. Um, like, so just to preface this, I do actually like some of her songs. Like, she's got some of her own songs which are actually alright. Like, they're not too bad. Is it called Transparent? I think one of her songs. I like one of her songs. Anyway, so this isn't like I hate her thing. It was just more. It was like years ago. I remember someone going, "Oh, she's only 10 years old and she can play the drums and she can do this." And I'm thinking, but yeah, she's come from extreme privilege, where like everything that you could ever be concerned about. Like, I'm not saying that like I was a slave as a child, because I fucking wasn't. But like, was Willow Smith ever asked to do the dishes? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Was she actually asked to do like, was she ever asked to like mop the floor? Probably not, because there would have been a house cleaner. There's no way the millionaires Jada and Will Smith didn't have a house cleaner. So like, that might be, yeah, it might not be this massive task, but like, that's time that somebody else could spend on a hobby. And I think about like my own advantages, where like obviously I lived at home when I was a kid and till like my mid-20s, and I think about like how when I was paid very little, like £500, £600 a month, and like some of my first starting jobs, my parents only wanted a fifth of that, which was like 100 and something quid, for board, which was insane, because that included like, you know, my clothes being like washed and cleaned, and like the house being tidy, and my food and electric, like all these stuff that would cost way more than that, which nowadays would cost that entire month's wage. So that in itself is an advantage. And then you think about stuff like that, where it's just like, oh yeah, the only tasks I had to do was sometimes I had to walk the dog and sometimes I had to do the dishes. Like, no wonder I was able to learn guitar in one summer. Like, it's not really like talent. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that talent doesn't exist. Of course, there are outliers, and there's some people who are just extremely like more inclined. But like, a lot of the time, it's just having like endless free time. You know what I mean? Or endless resources to buy yourself that free time. You know what I mean? Because as someone with ADHD who struggles with really boring tasks, if I had the money, of course I would love to have a cleaner. I would love to have someone come and do those things, because that's time for it. But it's a real considerable amount of time you're talking about. Like you say, when the evening rolls around and you're like, oh, we've got to get something to eat. Oh, we've got to, you know, prepare ourselves for the next day. And it's just one of those things, like, as you get older, you just realize like how much of a scam everything feels like. Like, everything just feels geared towards a certain type of success, and then like it seems like if you don't have those advantages, you're kind of fucked. And like I say, we put people on a pedestal who manage to pull themselves out through circumstance or like, you know, a unique skill. But then a lot of those people as well knew what they wanted to do. Most people don't know what they wanted to do. So like sometimes I'll be like, the town I'm from, Newcastle, like, you know, there's like a well-known footballer from here. I mean, there's a lot of footballers from here, but there's like quite a well-known footballer from Newcastle, Alan Shearer. I don't like football. I don't give a shit about it. But it's just like, if you loved football as a kid and just played football loads as a kid, and then you just happen to be really good at it, that like seems like a really natural progression. Where it's like, if you're a kid who never excelled at anything, or nothing, no one thing took your entire focus as a kid, like you've still got to figure it all out as you get older. Like, I'm not saying he came from extreme advantage. He didn't. I'm just saying like, but that's his advantage. His actual advantage was that he was gifted at football, but he also loved football as well. So like, his gift didn't feel like work. Do you know what I mean? And it's like that thing of like, you know, we expect 16-year-olds to like, oh, pick your subjects and go to university and pick what you want to do for the rest of your life. And it's great if you're one of the few kids who know that, but if you don't, you're kind of fucked. You know what I mean? Like, there's people, I think there's millions and millions of people who are in their 30s, 40s, they've got no idea what they want to do with their life. And they'll unfortunately never achieve anything. Like, they'll not achieve nothing that doesn't matter. That's not, you know what I mean? Everything's relative. But they'll never achieve, you know, like maybe the richness or the kind of lifestyle that they ever wanted. Simply because they weren't advantaged enough to like have that in their mind. You know what I mean? Like you can be average IQ, or you can even be like high IQ and still never figure out what you want to do, or not have the like mental acuity to constantly give yourself to that one task. Because I feel like that as I get older, that's more of what it is. Like repetition of the same task is the like most surefire way to success in any endeavor. But it's still not a guarantee. But it's your best fucking bet. You know what I mean? So like, obviously there's stuff you're going to be aged out of. I really hate that "you're never too old" line. Like that isn't true. Like I couldn't, like obviously I couldn't be a footballer because I'm fucking terrible at football. But even if I was peak physical fitness now, I'm too old for football. And if I was peak physical fitness and brilliant at football, but I hadn't made it at this point, like no one's gonna just randomly sign some 38-year-old bloke with no history of it, even if every time you've watched us play I was superb or some shit like that. You wouldn't even get looked at. You'd be like the second they'd be like, no, we're gonna hire someone who, you know, is like 21 because we're gonna get 10 years out of them. Do you know what I mean? So this idea of like, oh well, you can do anything at any time, and say, no, you can't. And not everyone can do everything, you know what I mean? And we shouldn't have to. It's just, that's the kind of system that we've got, is we laud the people who make it, and then we use those people as examples to hold other people down. To be like, well, this person made it and they came from the same shithole that you came from. And you're like, yeah, but like, that's like saying like, but this one person in a million got struck by lightning, I should be able to get struck by lightning. Like, that's just not how it works. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just wild that like we have this whole system that's predicated on that. And it's one of those things, as I get older, I just more and more believe in universal basic income, because the people who seem to fucking hate it the most are always the people who don't have to worry about that kind of money. Like, that kind of money wouldn't be life changing to them. They just don't want poor people to have some of the things that they have, and nobody ever wants to admit the advantages that they have. Because I've got loads of advantages and I'm still a fucking loser, but I've still got loads of advantages over someone else. Like, I'm not homeless. You know what I mean? I'm someone who can get jobs and's got jobs. I'm able to make friends. I've got a girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, those are advantages, having the ability to be able to do that. There's a lot of people who can't do those things. Do you know what I mean? And then there's physical advantages that we, you know, weirdly we're like laud physical advantages, and then in the same hand we try and take them away from people at the same time, you know. So like, I'm 6'1". Like, basketball players are always tall and things like that. They love that tallness in basketball players. But then obviously you've got that boxing Olympian who just won, and they're like, she's a bit manly, like a bit manly looking, this girl, so we want to take it away from her. But then, like every other fucking successful person, there's normally some advantage, wasn't it? Like, is it Michael Phelps? I'm not a sports guy, but I'm sure it was like he's either a swimmer or a cyclist, and it was like, oh yeah, proven that like his lungs were like better than other people's, or it was like the way his fucking lungs metabolize fucking, I don't know, oxygen or some shit. He was able to like hold his breath longer and blah blah blah. There's like all these natural advantages that he had. But then someone will say like, oh, be like that guy. Like, if you're from the same town that Michael Phelps is, like, why have you not made it? You on the swim team? And it's like, what are we fucking doing here? It's like, I mean, I never really cared about celebrity when I was even younger, but even less more than ever. I'm like, why do you care about these people's lives? Like, who are like super famous? Like, they're not doing anything particularly interesting, and they're typically not very interesting or down to earth people. So yeah, that was just my angry old man rant that I just needed to get out and put somewhere. So yeah, this will be nice to enjoy watching back to, you know, the three people who watch it. So I'm sorry this came up on your For You page. Is a For You page on YouTube? Recommended. Why did that go high pitched? Anyway, that's your whack.